Welcome, everyone, to the Northeast Indiana Basketball Summit. I am your host, Ben Smith, joined by my co-host, Jeff Metzger. Before introducing our guest, we want to thank Feel for the Game for providing the platform to have all these presentations live and available for replay. You can check out all the resources over at feelforthegame.com. Our guest this evening is Kurt Guelsdorf from Clackamas Community College. He's going to be talking advanced dribble drive in special situations. I know Coach has a lot of experience at the high school level, so I'm kind of interested to know, how that transition went from, high school to college, if you don't mind, Coach.
Sure. Let me make sure I've hit all the right buttons here and then go from there. I was in high school for 25 years and just had the opportunity to, excuse the hat and the long hair, guys. This is not my normal look. But I just had the opportunity to jump up with a guy I'd known for a long time, and it was the right time, I think, as a young coach, maybe make sure you've always got great admin, because I went through some different athletic directors, and I got along with most of them, and then some I didn't. And you got to always be aware of those things, because you got to have that support. You got to have that parent support, and you got to have that administrative support when you don't have the parent support. So, just made a move there. Had a good run at high school. I started out coaching, not knowing a darn thing at the high school I went to school at, coached there for 7 years and didn't really know what I didn't know. I had a chance to meet some really great people, and then got to Oregon City, which, if you know girls basketball at all, has been a national power for 30 plus years and multiple national championships, and was able to go there and have a pretty successful run. And then toward the end there, just wasn't quite feeling like the admin and I were on the same page. So I looked for an opportunity and got one just a couple minutes away at the community college. And it's a unique level. I think that for the right person in my right situation, it's a great level in that I can still teach at the high school and be over there. The recruiting is different there because you're trying to connect with kids that maybe not always your 4.0 kids. And I'm not trying to say we're a bunch of 1.0s, because we're not. We're great kids that really work hard, but it's a unique level, and it's a lot of fun, and the people that were there I'm working with have been there for 20 plus years, and so it's been really great. And I get probably the best job of all is I just get to coach and recruit a little bit. I don't have that administrative piece behind it, and it's kind of a nice little transition. I've still got a daughter who's in high school, and so I've got a couple more years before I can try to see if I want to branch out a little bit, but I do like it, and it's been able to I've been able to kind of expand with some of my video stuff and some championship production stuff. And so it's been a nice little transition. And for guys that want to jump to college, I just keep your ears to the ground and keep talking with those guys and keep going to their practices and asking those, because I do get asked that a lot about high school to college and trying to make that leap. It's I don't want to say it's easier than you think. It's just who you know and looking for those opportunities. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of my little story there. I don't want to, talking about wins and losses. I think we measure ourselves about the kids that we change their lives and that call you 10 years from now and invite you to weddings and those kind of things. Those are the big wins in our coaching in lifetime.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. So if you want to get right into the material?
Sure. Let me share my screen here. Make sure that I've done a few of these, so I should be able to do this okay. And are you getting that, Coach? Have you got my info in front of you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and now let me go to the full screen, and we can just kind of roll here. If you're looking to get a hold of me, am I okay now or not?
Right now it's black. I think it's trying to load. Okay,
so the sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. Let me try that again. I don't know if it's because of our internet connection. I might have to go slide by slide. Are we coming up yet or not, Coach?
Nothing's coming up now. I can see the very top taskbar, but
okay. Let me
I don't know if there's that.
All right, let me see what happens here. Is that you got me again? How about
there? Right now we just got you.
Okay. Let's see if I can try one more time. Okay. Let's see here. Apologize. We'll get this figured out. I'm going to try to share my screen one more time. Okay, what do you got now?
I can see it now.
Okay, you got the slide there in front of me with my name?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to just start with that and then expand that out because I think when I went to the full screen view, it didn't like that. I'm going to try one more time. Did it go black completely or are we good now?
Yeah, it's just black, unfortunately.
Okay, so let me go back to screen share and we'll just ditch that and go from there.
All good. Oh, there you go.
We good?
Yep.
Okay, so for those of you that want to read, are we
All
okay?
right.
We good?
We're good.
Okay. This is the pictures, the screen you want to take a quick screenshot on as far as contact info. My school email is really long, so I just use my regular Gmail one. There's a phone number if you want to reach out by text. My Twitter here. I do some 1 minute timeouts that I was almost embarrassed to do the first time. And I just called them 60 seconds with KG, and they actually got a little bit of traction. And I kind of did them to try to support my videos that I did for championship. And they ended up getting 100,000 plus views total. So if you want to check those out, they're 1 minute timeouts about a topic. Sometimes it's multiple topics. It's on my Twitter. It's also on our YouTube for Clackamas Community College women's basketball. So kind of something that you can check out. But definitely these are the contact places to get to me and ask any follow-ups. And I love the follow-ups. Don't feel like you can't. A lot of guys help me get the knowledge, and I don't know any more than any other guys. I just, I think we as coaches have to be pretty humble and realize that we're all learning from somebody, and there's always somebody smarter unless you're John Wooden or Michael Jordan. So, that's kind of my philosophy there. See if I can click there and get it. There's a little picture of that, so you can see I just do it, and I'll put this PDF on Twitter. That you guys can download it from there or just email me if that's something that you're having trouble with. I know that sometimes it doesn't always work perfect. My championship videos, I did 2 of them a couple summers ago. I think they were pretty well reviewed as far as I try to do them with a high school coach in mind, a coach that was trying to build something from scratch with the defense, the multiple pressing, a simplified way to do it, and then with the dribble drive, knowing that Vance and those guys had kind of covered the basics, I tried to create a video that kind of took you to the next level, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So anyway, there's the website there. Let's get to the stuff. Thanks, Coach. I wanted to thank you. I think really as coaches, we should be sharing all the time. I know it's hard. Your rival down the road, you want to kick their butt, and they want to kick yours. We used to find guys from out of state right across the river to the scrimmage in the summers so that we didn't have that issue. But I think my evolution, to give you just an insight, was I probably thought I knew a lot about coaching when I started. And very, very quickly after talking to some really good coaches in the state of Oregon, I realized I don't know crap. So it was that process at age 26 that, having been a JV2 boys coach and a JV girls coach and really just trying to find a job, realizing that, man, I didn't know much. The true measure, again, it goes back to your life lessons. I think that's critical. And I think an important factor, you hear criticisms all the time, especially you high school guys. I feel for you. You got 55,000 coaches or 5,000 or 500 coaches sitting up in the stands that think they know more because they've had their kids in youth basketball. If there's any truth to it, you seek it out and try to fight it, maybe get better, but otherwise you can dismiss it and move on. I try to go with the approach of a why question all the time, pertaining to our dribble drive. What are we doing in practice that does it translate? Does it help us get better? What tweaks can we make, and where can you get personally and professionally better all the time? At the last little bullet there is to beg, borrow, steal. I was one of those guys that would bug the heck out of coaches and try to visit with them, meet with them, go to their practices, especially when I realized that I just didn't know much about knowing stuff because I just did what I knew, and it really wasn't very good. And so I ended up doing a whole lot of stuff that really didn't help our team. Just some things that I think can help you guys. I think to compare yourself to the program down the road, it'll get you in trouble. I think you just try to be big time where you're at. Both those there's a quote and then there's a book by a Northwest football guy. He said, big time where you're at. I think the reality of it is some of the very best coaches in the country and the world are probably at some high school that you've never heard of, and they're going 10 and 15 with very little talent. As far as what I've been reading lately, Atomic Habits is something that I really, really enjoyed reading. I think it's a must read for coaches trying to be able to manage their busy lives and, trying to look for getting better at whatever it is we do. This is kind of a coaching philosophy for me, and I think this is important to realize, coaches, especially now when we've probably all seen virtual clinics for the last 3 weeks. And the jelly bean jar can only hold so much. And my analogy there is your team can only do so much. So discern, figure out what it is. I like to teach in bullet points. I try to strive to be great at maybe 3 things. It was run, rebound, take care of the ball when I was in high school. And we were going to do that with pressure defense in the full court, pressure offense. And we were going to try to crush you on the glass and try to take away your will to play. If you overload them, I think there's a lot of issues there with being able to really function at a high level. The last couple bullets here, I think you choose wisely with what you do. I think that's a process that you go through from young coach. I think I remember as a young coach, probably everything that I saw, I thought could work. Every drill, I think if you'd have walked into my practice 20 years ago, you'd have seen a whole lot of drills and a whole lot of non-transference going on. Like, I was good at going from a lot of drills to a lot of drills, but wasn't really very good at transferring it to the players and making them better. And then the last part, loving your players, find a way to connect. For me, not teaching at the college, but being at the high school, my 2.5 hours with our players, I try to connect with every one of them. The Bobby Hurley rule, the first 15 minutes of every practice, connect with every kid, whether that's a high five or whether that's, hey, how's school going, how your classes. Utilize that time that you've got with them. If you're a high school coach and you're in the same building with them, find other ways to make sure they know you're there and to connect, because then they'll run through walls for you and they'll do what you need them to do. I think X's and O-wise, because we're getting there, I think you must understand your scheme. You need to know every answer. And if you don't know it, you should, because I do think that we have to be masters of our craft. And the ability to teach the game at a high level is pretty rare. And I think that's what we should all strive to do. I think the best coaches are really teachers first. And I don't mean necessarily classroom teachers. You could be, you might not be. It depends. But I think you teach the game well. The best guys around, the Popoviches, the Larry Browns, those kind of guys, Dean Smith, were teachers of the game. Let's get to the dribble drive now. And I'm going to split this up about 50-50 with dribble drive. And I'm going to make sure I'm watching my watch here so that I don't go too long on dribble drive. We were set today to talk about advance. I want to get through the basics first. The basics to me is Vance Wahlberg. Knowing Vance, he was recruiting a high school boy at the school I was at. And so I got to know Vance, and we kind of went dribble drive around 2006. The advance piece was just stuff that I've seen other people do, I've played around with, versus certain things. Because the major questions I always get asked about dribble drive are, how do we deal with sagging and switching? How do you deal with the pack line stuff? How do you move the nailed defender and the teams that really load to the ball? And what do you do with the big post that slides over and blocks all your shots? And so there's some things I'll go through in the dribble drive. And again, you can take pictures here, guys. I do have this PDF that can go out to you that I'll get up on my Twitter immediately afterwards. For us, just to go through the basics of it, our point guards, our pilot, they fly the plane, they get us going where we want to go. Our 2 and 3 are our 2 jets. They're flying the floor down the speed zone. Our 4s, our post, that's our runner. They've got to run the middle. This is not magic here. This is just your basic numbered break. I've always been a press coach, and in high school, it was press all the time. We were going to press you for 29 minutes and then see what we needed to do in the last 3 to win the game. And then our 5, in high school, I called it H-back. I've kind of gone to trigger man now in college. It can be a post if you're going to play 2 bigs. We ran out of bigs at the high school way back when, and so we went 4 guards. So really the only true post out there could be your 4. And even now we get into some 5 out of it. So again, that's your basic numbers and little nicknames that we use for each one. I want the analogy, the point guard, because I think we come in and have this preconceived notion about what we are. And if you're a pilot, I'm flying the plane, I'm driving the car, I'm I'm driving the bus, I'm directing. So those are some things that we try to use beyond just your traditional numbers to get them thinking. You know, your 2s and 3s are your jets, the speed of the game, your runners, you know, those kind of things that connotate some meaning beyond just a number. The basic spacing for dribble drive, I think for me, I got to a point where my 5-man, my trailer, my trigger was higher and wider all the time. And then for teams that were really putting X5 in the middle to jam it up, we would put them right at the top of the key. And I kind of borrowed this idea watching Doug Novak and his Bethel teams. Sometimes he'll have them facing the baseline. Sometimes it'll be kind of a ball screen. We use that, but it's kind of a way to force X5 to defend closely rather than just play the gap. If they're playing pretty tight and on the line, up the line, then we're going to tell 5 to get way spaced. But that's the basic spacing there. I break it up. I use quarters for our defense. I use quarters for our offense. We have our speed zone. There's no jogging allowed in the speed zone. That was really big for us in our transition game. When I came to Oregon City and was working with Brad Smith, who I think probably is the best high school, on the girls' side anyway, coach I've ever seen. And I got to work with him side by side for 3 years. So that was like I felt like a PhD in basketball. But we really emphasized speed zone in the middle of the floor, top of key to top of key. And your attack zone down in there where we start getting into some of the dribble drive basics. And so that's kind of how I describe the floor. Some years we'd put cones out in those spots so you could have those and you were watching for certain things. But I think that analogy of a speed area, you got your players sprinting through there, putting pressure on the defense. As far as what Vance's big 3, you know, an attack mentality, trying to create open gaps and have great spacing. The kick-ups, the kickbacks, the drops, and the drags. Those are things you have to be great at in dribble drive. Okay, I think that's, you know, obviously this is talking about the advanced stuff, and I'm going to get to that, but I think those are things you have to be great at before you can get to any advanced stuff. We always talked about the 3 ways that a team could guard your corners, and I was always a coach that learned from some really good guys to keep your eyes down the floor and not necessarily on the ball. I think we as coaches have a tendency sometimes to be too focused on the ball. And so I'm always looking ahead, and I've just got the 2-man side highlighted here, but I'm always looking ahead to see how they're guarding my corners. If they're flat here, then probably going to run a kick up. If they're hugging, then we're going to go backdoor off a little setup. If they're on the line, up the line, this is an automatic backdoor cut for us. So again, there's the things that I think that I would teach on day 1 of any dribble drive, even if it's advanced stuff or just whatever. These guys have to know how to react to that defense down there in the corner. You can see I've got 3 defenders in 3 different spots. It's the same person, 3 different ways. Again, your kickbacks, your kick-ups are part of your basics. Your drops are part of your basics. And those are things that you have to be masters at. Now, this is how I've kind of diagrammed our floor. And the drop zone and the drag zone are very fluid for me now. Very early on, I was very rigid with my drop zone. The tape on the floor and the 2-foot stops, I'm much less rigid. My drop zone, depending on the pressure of the defense, may be way up high. My drag zone past the free throw line could be in a lot of different areas. It could extend all the way down to the low block. If you're going to throw a skip, I think early drag is better. If you're in the late drag zone down around the block area, if you're a penetrator, get to the Steve Nash spot. That's what we call underneath the hoop. The lift zone is what we talk about our 2s and 3s. They have to get there on dribble penetration from the strong side or weak side, excuse me. But we kind of have, you know, depending on the years. In high school, I would put tape down. For our college kids, I put little markers down in the corner. I want my 2s and 3s, even with the rim. My 1 here, my 5 really high and wide. And depending on your 4, I sometimes take a less post-up nature 4 and put them all the way down to the dunk spot. If I like them posting up and diving in, I might lift them up a little bit more, and I think that's personal preference. Getting to the more advanced stuff now. I think it could be helpful for anybody. Some of the actions that we use, the whole key there is getting bigger gaps. And again, it goes back to teams that sag, teams that switch. That's where I got going with it, but I realized that it can really benefit a lot of different teams, and whether they're running ball screen motion or whatever it is you're running. I call them false motions. I call them isolations, post-ups, and just some simple entries. and even some special backdoors that we run in our dribble drive to kind of take it to the next level. Trying to just show you why I think you could turn anything that you run into a dribble drive opportunity, whether it's, in this case, I've got a box set. You've seen this. It's screen across, double screen, end it with an ISO. I've got another example here of a baseline out of bounds play, simply where you get screen to screener and it ends up, your safety gets it, because we don't always get a lane on our out of bounds plays, even though we want to. It ends up with a dribble drive situation. So I just think that the concept of ending with the dribble drive, even if you're maybe not a dribble drive guy, is one that can help you be a little bit more efficient on offense, or at least create some opportunities. Some philosophy things in advance. I think you've got to emphasize paint touches, and skips are great, and I love them, but the paint touches are the hardest long closeout you can create. A skip pass, a lot of times coaches are working that in their drills. They're in their shell. The skip, I run out, I do that, but very rarely do they have to get sucked in by dribble penetration and then get back out. That's really hard. So I think you have to measure paint touches if you're a dribble drive guy. I think second and third side ball reversals, emphasizing that in your breakdown drills and emphasizing that in your offense, getting it to the second and third side. Especially when your team's stagnant a little bit, maybe not running the stuff. We like to flatten the defense, called condensing an area and open up another. I use a lot of fake actions, and I ask in there, does your offense have something deceptive? If you have a favorite play that everybody in your league knows, do you have some sort of little action that leads you to the same thing, but you can disguise it a little bit? And that's what I like about the fake and false motions. And then I think this is a concept I've really dove into in the last couple of years, is moving that nail defender. I think I hear that a lot when I listen to NBA guys talk, because they have to move that nail defender because those guys are so big. You've got to find ways, whether it's basket cuts or loop cuts or whatever, to move that nail defender. And so some of the stuff I'm going to show you does that. And then the last part here is the post defender. I think we all, especially if you're on the guy's side who's got the 6'10" guy blocking shots, or for a dribble drive guy, you get past your man, and now you've got a post that slides over, and then the guard covers down, and you have to throw a drag pass that, especially on the women's side, is a hard pass. So I started looking at different ways to lift them, and I kind of settled in on about 3 or 4 different ways to do it. Used a lot of Princeton action this year that flows really good into dribble drive. I would encourage all dribble drive guys to look at the Princeton as far as some of the chin stuff. There's the point series too that you can look at, and I'm kind of studying that this off season. A 5 out, some way to get it. I like 5 out if I start 4 out first. I don't like coming down just to 5 out. I don't think the gaps are big enough, but if I have something that moves my post out and then they just space, I think that works pretty well. And then I even started to play around with some horns this year, and I really liked it. I was never a horns guy, and then I kind of found some ways to use it to get us right into dribble drive that I liked. And I think, for dribble drive, that's kind of been something that I think has been going around for a while, as far as moving that big out of there. And I think everybody at points, probably, maybe if you have a shooter or just want to get a big guy out of there to get an isolation for your best driver late in the game, those are good concepts to think about. For gaps, we use a couple things to create bigger gaps. We use cuts. We use the 0.5 rule of ball movement. And that's a tough one, because you're going to have your best player that you probably give her or him a little bit more time with the ball if they want it. But move that thing, and there's a couple drills that I can share later that we use to teach that. We use a split sprint to attack the defense. It's kind of an NBA concept: balls in the air, feet in the air, attack. I really, really emphasize the word conquer middle, constantly trying to make sure that we're able to take a bump and not get pushed off our line. And that's something that you've got to just enforce, counting those paint touches, getting those guys into paint, even if they don't have an advantage and it's neutral. We will encourage to dribble into that post up, or at least get a paint touch in the middle. I use the concept of swing, attack, SSA. Vance was always attack, skip, attack. And then, the finishing skills that go with it. And I think if you're a high school guy, in my youth program, I am telling my youth guys, you must create willing shooters. The worst thing I see when we play at other colleges, or even on our own team, kids that struggle shooting the ball, you just don't guard them. You get to the college level, we can play 4-on-5 some days because they have a kid that can't shoot. You see that in high school all the time. I think a big emphasis for any youth program is create willing shooters at a young age. It'll make whatever offense you want better. moving quickly through this so you can kind of see into the advanced stuff. The 1 and 2 pass entries is something I've added. I think it can lead to your favorite sets, favorite continuities, and I think I use it a lot to stay a little bit ahead of the defense. And I know a lot of coaches use the term flow, where it just flows seamlessly. I just try to make every entry just a very seamless flow into our dribble drive. And these are very simple actions. They're not complicated. They don't have 6 options. I'm not smart enough for that. I like 1 or 2 options, a favorite action and a counter, and let's go from there. I do think it's important, coaches, that you look at your scout and try to attack the weaker defenders, figure out where you can get them, especially late game, somebody on your staff doing stuff like that. How do they guard you? Are they an overhelp? Or they, whatever it is. And I know the zone is a whole nother concept that we can talk about. I think those are things you have to realize going into a game, and have a play sheet of things that you want to do, and have a play sheet for every single player. Play for your 5, 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and maybe your names or whatever, because we all want to get certain actions at certain times versus certain defense. I think especially with dribble drive, the switch versus no switch, and then if you're a ball screen guy, are they blitzing you, are they downing you, whatever. As far as the breakdowns go, we're going to teach our guards long lay-ins, strong hand, which is to me more than just your normal lay-in. We're going to teach your inside hand lay-in, the inside hand rondo. We're going to go through a 2-foot power series. I think Doug Novak probably teaches that as well as I've seen as far as the video stuff. So I would encourage you guys to look him up. Bethel men's basketball does a terrific job. He's really influenced how I look at individual work and what we do. For the bigs in dribble drive, they got to be quick ups. They got to put it back on both sides. They got to be able to take away a shot blocker, and then your basic post stuff, your drops, your hooks, your jump hooks, your up and unders, and your pound drops. We talk to them all the time in shot selection about big advantage, small advantage. I think this is big, coaches. You can use different words. The big advantage is you blow by your guy and you're going off 1 foot. Your small advantage, we try to encourage the 2-foot finishes in traffic with a bump, and then neutral. If you're in a neutral situation where you're getting squared up on, you're either going to get a paint touch or dribble into a post up to get the next action going. And I think that's something to think about, the words that you want to use. And I think language is big. I think teaching shot selection in dribble drive is really important in whatever offense you're running. We kind of went through some of the things that we teach. I think you have to build confidence in your players and with a system. And I'm a big system guy. I really feel like that's helped us be successful over the years with an offensive defensive system. When I was in high school, that our 4th graders on up would run. And then the last part on this one is the key or 3. Vance was always, hey, we're either going to shoot a 3 or we're going to get all the way to the paint. We're okay with a mid-range for the right kid. And we talk about points per possession. We don't have the staff to do it too in-depth, but we do look at it using synergy quite a bit. I think the best way to teach shot selection, we use tape on the floor. I did one of my 60-second episodes. We actually put tape on the floor that has these numbers. I think that's much better than any story that we can tell or any analogy that we can tell. If a kid shoots a crappy shot, it's a 0.4. We might stop a scrimmage. We might stop a drill. We might stop a breakdown and go look at the floor, look at your feet. What are we talking about? And I think that illustration is really good, and it's really simple. Tape on the floor to illustrate what's a good shot, and we all know that anything 1 or above is pretty good. And so we want to be shooting the 1.2s, the free throws 1.4, the lay-in uncontested 1.8. Hopefully almost a 2.0 if it was uncontested, but we're trying to get those shots in our offense. I think language, coaches, is one of the best things that I was able to switch from high school to college. Was I cleaned up all those things that didn't make very much sense that were probably done at the high school level where, hey, I like this action and we need to get it in. And I just made up a name probably that day or at that practice. I've cleaned that all up. And I think language makes it simple. I think the more we can do it, 1-syllable short ones. I've used 100, 200, and 300 for all of my simple dribble drive entries. We use blast and arrow, brush, rub, jet, wave, net, simple 1-syllable words to describe an action. And then I can put that together. And again, I'm not telling you to use what I use. What I'm encouraging you to do, coaches, is create a language that's unique to you, that you can use, that will teach your stuff better. Because I think that we could create really complex languages that for kids are tough. And so I think it's important. And I put the picture of John Gruden there because I would remember his quarterback shows where he would say 20 different things. And and I just thought, gosh, if I could make that more simple, because football always has 5 or 6 things together in one play call. The offensive line, the tight ends, the wide receivers, and the running backs, and then the quarterback call or whatever it's on. And so I've borrowed some of that. I think it's good to learn a little bit from football guys too, as far as how they utilize their assistants. I use series for me. They're your horn series or 1 series or 2 series or zip series, just examples. I think that makes it easier. When we were playing for state championships at Oregon City, everything was on one hand. It was a 1 up, a 1 down, a 1 in, a 1 out. That may not work for you, but we were always feeling like with 5,000 people in the stands, no one could hear anything. So we needed things on one hand. The college, we don't have as many in a state championship. We don't have, obviously, a college state championship, but our crowds are sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller than your normal home games, but we can hear pretty well. So we can use a lot of different creative things. But I do think it's important for language. The things that we use it, and this is the advanced part, we use different cuts. We did use different false motions. We use ball reversals, screens, and fake screens. And I think those are things that any offense can use to help create better advantages. Just to go through these, for us, a push cut is simply just dribbling at a player and they fill out to the other corner. A nail cut is one that some coaches call a loop or a brush, depending on how referees are letting you make that illegal pick up top. But that's just to create a bigger gap for the 1 going to the left side and the 4 relocating. We have a jet cut. Kind of an Iverson for some of you guys that know that 1 cutting across the nail. Or even the 2. Got this from Mike Neighbors at Arkansas. He kind of runs his 2 sometimes there. And what I'll tell you, coaches, on this jet cut, you'd be amazed at how much tighter the defenders chase. So if you're trying to create a big gap, in this case for the 5, obviously the 1 and 2 wouldn't go at the same time. But if you're trying to create a bigger gap for 5, you'd be amazed. On a baseline cut, the guy usually stops on the midline. Not a lot of stopping when you cut right across that Iverson. For us, an arrow is 1 to 5, and then a cut to the opposite corner. Whoever makes it cuts to the opposite corner than where they're at. And we've had a lot of success creating double gaps with that. You can see here the 5 has a big double gap. And if we went 1 more to the 3, we'd even get to a triple gap situation. False motions. For us, ball reversals, some sort of weave, screening, pick pops, anything that you can come up with. And I don't know if I even know the correct definition for false motion. I just have little things that really just set up the next thing. And I call them false motions. I think I heard it years ago and just started doing my own thing with it. But the idea is you're setting something else up with what you're doing. This is one of my favorite dribble drive actions. You're getting some X's and O's now. This is a 1 to 5 to 3 pass. And we used to call this rocket. And this is just simply a deep cut by each player that sets up a big gap for our 3. We used to have a left-handed 2. I love having a lefty at the 2 spot and a lefty at the 1 spot. If you can get that, you are gold. But we're trying to create big gaps with some movement here, flatten the defense, don't allow them to switch. And again, I've got here, if it's dribble drive, it's a great entry. If it's just late clock and you got 9 seconds on there and you want to get your 2-man going downhill or shoot a 3, I think this is a great end of quarter play. That's the other thing in the college level. You have a lot of like end of quarter situations, end of game, advance the ball stuff that are really a lot of fun to play with. Same action. Now I make 1 play into 2. We start it with a nail cut. But again, that expands your playbook without putting too much stuff on your kids. Because again, going back to the jelly bean, we can't fill it up too much. It'll overflow. So if we go nail cut rocket, that would be this. Same play. Now it's going to be the 3-man going downhill at the end. Wave, another one of our simple entries. I absolutely love this one, and we probably start wave action early in the game. We'll have about 5 or 6 plays that I'll write down that I want to find out what the opponents are doing with certain actions of ours. If they're a man team, how they're going to guard us. So I'll run some wave, I'll run some rocket, I'll run some ball screen stuff, see if they're switching, see if we can take advantage of that. Pick on their mismatches, identify their worst player, worst defender, that kind of stuff. So I love this one. It's very simple. It's just a 1-5-3, and then the 3 gets going downhill. Another one, again, trying to get through to get to special sits so I don't spend too much time on the dribble drive here. I think every offense can benefit from fake handoffs. And there's two versions of it. There's off the catch, and typically that's a post up either on the mid wing area or the top of the key, where we're catching, fake handoff back to my guy, and then I go. And then there's the fake handoff off the dribble. We used to call this the Chris Paul move. If you watch Chris Paul play, he'll come up for a handoff and then turn his shoulders and then go again. But I think those are terrific actions to get an advantage. And it allows, it's just hard to guard. If you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. The technique there is back to the baseline, kind of a post up, outside hand on either side, catch, show, and then attack. Here's an example of the fake handoff off the catch. It looks like the PDF got it moved a little bit here, but you could see a 1-2 entry with a fake handoff. You could see a 1-3 entry with a fake handoff. And then the last one you could see, this should be a 5 up top based on our numbers, our trigger man. That's a 1-4 in this case, 1-5, whatever. And it's a fake handoff right off the top. And I think those actions to whatever, you could just lead it right into your ball screen motion. Here, 4 could kick it to 2, 5 could sprint out. I just like it because it creates advantages, and I want to put our team in a situation where we're getting advantages. Another action is the fake handoff off the dribble. We call those quicks. 1 dribbles toward 2. They start selling the pitch, and then we go. I love this late in clock, 10 seconds on the clock. You can finish this with a hammer. We have some action where we do the fake handoff and then end up with a hammer on the backside. You can see how that fits. You can align your players however you want to. Really like it. Really like the fake handoff off the dribble. And you'll find out which kids can do them a little bit better than others. But I really, really like the fake handoff as kind of a false action to get us into our offense. And here's an example here for the trailer. Sabrina Inescu, who was in Oregon, she played for my buddy's club team, and boy, she could fake handoff with the best of them. She'd turn her shoulders and kind of show ball, and then boom, big advantage. Obviously, one of the very best players on the women's side you're going to see. I utilize this one a lot, guys, and I would just call this, to me, a traditional, almost set playish, but it's a perfect flow, and it's very simple action into our dribble drive. And what I've found is corner pick and roll or actions down on the baseline are very hard for the sagging, switching, pack line teams to deal with. We flatten them on the baseline. In this case, it's a 1-2. 1 cuts, then we get ball reversal. So we've got 2 good things. We've got ball movement, we've got ball reversal, and we have flattened the defense. So it makes it very, very challenging for your pack line or sag switch teams to deal with this. And we end up with corner pick and roll. The second series here at the bottom shows the same play, except for now we did it for our trailer man. I used what I call a vertical screen here. I love this little action where the 1 screens for the trailer and then turns around. It's a great way to get the ball to them. You can use it as a drive angle, but basically it's the old Tex Winter triangle, and it's a corner pick and roll. And this one has been really good to us, and I know that I've seen teams that are not dribble drive teams run this into the ground too. And it's an old one, but it's a good one. And I would encourage you to take a peek and see how that could help your offense. I do have it on the championship when they did my videos. Have this one on there. You can take a peek at it. Some newer stuff, and I'm going to go a little quicker now because I do want to get to the special situation stuff. Ghost screens, isolation plays. I think they can work, and especially teams that are ball screen teams can use those. For us, it's a simple series. We always like to diagnose early how teams are going to guard ball picks. So we'll screen for the 1 coming down. We'll go pick and pop out of this. We'll short roll a little bit to the nail. We've incorporated that a little bit. And if we want to isolate our guy, you can see here on the second one on a throwback, we'll take the 2 and push cut them out, throw it back to the 5 and let them go. The concept of a fake screen here is something that I think if you've got a crafty 1, X1 starts feeling for the screen, and then they refuse it, and then you got a double gap to get into. And then, of course, the ghost, where the 5 goes, acts like they're going to set it and then runs right by. Sometimes that turns into a flip, where they flip around and set another one. Other times it just gets into a gap. So those are things I think you can think about to kind of take your dribble drive to the next level. I love this next series here that we'll go through. Some isolations, flares, pistol. I wrote down 2 that I've studied the most. I don't have time to cover all of them, but if you want to get deeper into the pistol series, Doc Rivers and Dave Severns on the Clippers years ran these, and then Gino Ariama runs a pretty good little 21 series from his older teams. I don't know if he runs it as much. I love using screens to create gaps, chin action, horn action. Getting in into the isolations now. This is very simple, very basic, but I think that the simpler we are sometimes, the better this is. This for us would be play call 1, and we would simply let the 1 go. Calipari used to kind of have his guys kind of dance over here and hang out and let them go. This turns into a kick back. If it's a baseline drive, we might get a tee up, 5 coming behind, but just a simple way to get your offense started, especially with a team that's really pack lining you, where that 2-man is getting in the way, X5, so I think a great way to just start your offense is just start your dribble drive right there. And later on, we might call a 1 down or a 1 up. A 1 up would turn into a kickback. A 1 down would just be the automatic baseline drive. Same action for the 2, same action for the 3. Just a 153 and then clear it for the 3. I think whether you're a dribble drive guy or not, I think there's times you want to just get your best player the ball and get out of their way. ISO for the trailer, just a 1 to 5 with an arrow cut and let them go. Sometimes the 5 might have to pump fake it to the 3 to create a little bit more space, but it is hard to guard a kid from this spot all the way downhill. And for us, this past year, we had a pretty darn good player, and she's able to get downhill quite a bit. I think everybody in their isolation series should have some sort of 4 flat, whether that's just 4 flat, let your point guard go, or 4 flat and find some action to get a guy off a double, or run some old school turnout where the 2 and the 3 crisscross. I think it's good just to have. I think if you don't have a 1-4 low in there, you're at least not being able to diagnose sometimes. And I think doing that against the zone is a great strategy also sometimes. This is a box set, and it kind of fits into the isolations. And I share this because this one has probably been the one that probably got the most traction for me about 10 or 12 years ago. This was one of the best isolation plays. Kind of just came up with it based on what I saw somebody else do out of a 1-2-2. It's just a box series, and we ended up putting in a couple box series that flowed into our dribble drive. But this is an entry to the elbow, stepped out a little bit, 3 clearing, 2 screening up. What happens there is X2 steps back for a little bit, 2 flashes to the ball, make sure they flash to the ball, 1 calls for the ball as a setup, and you get just an isolation. And it's a very challenging play to guard. Finding ways to get your player the ball around the 15-foot mark with an attack mode is super hard to guard. It's much harder to guard players 15 feet in on a catch than it is from the 3-point line, because you do have a little bit more space, although the 3-point shot is such a threat. But I do believe in that quick catch and rip. Flares, I'm going to go through a couple flares here rather quickly. But I do think that there's something, especially teams that are sagging, switching, pack lining you. The first one up here, and I go back here, I think it's a good one to catch the defense, especially out of a timeout, especially against the mediocre defender that kind of turns their head. I think it's a great way to get a quick shot, and again, it looks to flow for us right into our dribble drive. The first one here is a simple, we just call this pistol 2. It's a step-up screen to a kind of a flare-ish screen by the 5. This was an end-of-game play for me at the high school level 2 or 3 years ago. This was our go-to. Dribble hard into the screen, get the flare, and in worst-case scenario, we had a dribble drive at the end. Best case, we had a 3. And it was important for us in our dribble drive that the players understood what they were best at. If they were best off the shot, then play off the shot and use your fakes to get dribble penetration. If you were best driver, use your drive, use the split sprint techniques. And that's really just helping players be better. That's not pigeonholing them and telling them they can't shoot. It's, man, you got to do what you're great at and then work on, the whole thing of, do you accentuate strengths or do you work on your weaknesses? I think that's a coaching philosophy thing. I know that when I got to running my offense, I wanted my kids doing what they did really well, as much as possible. And this is one that pretty common pistol flare action. This has been my favorite flare play for a long time now. It's a simple dribble entry into a 1 to 5 flare by the 4 action. And I'm telling you what, guys, this is pretty gold. And this will help you. This will get you a 3, especially when you need it. And I would save this one. I'm going to talk a little bit later about red zone and stuff, about saving stuff later. But this is a dribble entry. You can run it for your 2 and your 3 also, where we simply just get it to the 3 and allow them soft drive to the elbow. What I mean by that is you don't want to beat 3. You want 3 to think they've beat you. And so it's an easy flare angle for your 4. Stepping up. So the idea there, guys, is attacking. X3 relaxes, and then we flare them. And it's one that's been really good to us over the years. And I've seen it originally, I think, on the guys' side. I think Sean Miller and a buddy of mine, Kelly Sopak in Northern California, who's a brilliant coach, has run this a lot and had a lot of mileage out of this one too. Screen to create gaps. I think if you run single screens, down screens, curls can be ways to open up shooters and drivers. And we do this off singles and doubles. The one my favorite over the years was just the simple 1-5-3, or in this case, this picture is a 1-4-3 with a stagger away. Well, as I got into dribble drive, I thought to myself, how can I take a simple stagger for a 3? And I didn't really know what to do afterwards and make it a little bit better. So here what you're seeing is just the old school America stagger, 1-4-3, stagger for your 2. The next one, it's a 1-2, where the 1 ends up getting the stagger for the 3 at the top. Well, what I started to see is if I, for some reason, when the player curled, it created more gap. So the concept of a forced curl kind of became into our vocabulary about 10 years ago, not because anything other than I just watched kids curl and man, this really works good. So what we did is we created some actions with forced to curl. In this picture here, what you're seeing is the 2 staggered, clearing, and what happens is the 5 turns around, and now what you've got is just a nice gap here. X5 had to deal with the forced curl and is somewhere in here, and if the 5 can shoot it, they can shoot it. Otherwise, they're putting it down on the bounce on a split sprint, and they're attacking a short, awkward closeout there, and the 1 is spaced to the corner and gone from there. Getting into the post defender stuff, the horns, the Princeton, the 5-out are my favorite ways to get them out of there. And this is kind of why, guys. And when I went to thinking about advanced, what can I do to make regular dribble drive better? Here's the situation that I ran into. My driver gets by, X4 slides over, X3 covers down. Everybody got better at guard and dribble drive. Everybody knows how to guard it. The 3 doesn't stay. They stay home on the corner shooter. So what do you do? And so what I've done is a lot of Princeton. And for me, that's the simple chin without the handoff to the 2. We just went 1-5-3, chin to flare. And what that allowed us to do was get downhill with my best driver, the 5-man, and it allows us to space right into 5-out. At this point, if you look at these 2 diagrams, we're looking for lay-in, we're looking for flare. If we really like our 1 down there, we would call 1 down, zip 1 down, and we'd leave them in there. And then we would just let them play. We would cut the 3 through, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. But this is great action for your dribble drive. This is great action if you run ball screen. You could throw it to the 5 and have the 4 ball screen right there and then run into your pick and roll game. I think it can work for a lot of different things. Old Pete Carrill with the chin was always labeled the boring Princeton offenses, but there were so many good actions. I encourage all of you to look at the Princeton stuff and see what little pieces you can draw from it to improve your offense, because I guarantee you there's something in there that you're going to like. Horns. I'm never a horns guy for years and years. We ran 2 or 3 different versions of horn stuff. This was one I got from Eric Spoelstra with LeBron James way back when. And I don't know how I ran into it, but they would run Dwayne Wade over LeBron or vice versa, and then all of a sudden the guy would just break it back, and now you're in dribble drive. And for us, this was perfect to lead into our 5-out. It got the post out of there, and this would be one that would be a dead situation. We weren't transitioning, yelling horns. We're trying to get primary break first. We're going to flow into our quick action second, and then get into dribble drive. This would be for us a dead ball situation, some sort of dead where we have to make a call there, because we really don't like interrupting the flow unless, of course, we see something, we need a bucket, whatever it might be. And again, another way to get into 5-out I like is a simple ball screen, a sprint screen after a push cut, and then go to 5-out. Because the question often comes up, do you ever run 5-out with your dribble drive? And the answer is yes. But I like it when it starts 4-out. I've got my runner who then sprints out, ball screen, chin action, horns. then we're in 5 out. It just seems to work better. I think you need to have post-ups in your playbook. I've got a couple quick, easy ones, but I do think you need to keep your posts involved. This is one of my favorites. This is a Greg Campy play that I think any offense can use, and it can be run both ways. This is a 1-2 kick up, if you know that terminology, and then it's a throwback to the corner, and we're sneaking under. This will work for you high school guys. The better teams that you're playing, this will work better. They'll be in the right spot, whereas a bad team might be over here hugging your 4-man. It's a very simple action. I love it, and you just butt seal this guy, and it's a 2-footer for a lay-in. UCLA with Kevin Love ran something similar to it years ago too. I don't think it was the exact stuff, but Greg Campy is really a good one to look at. He's at Oakland in Michigan on the men's side. I believe it's Michigan, and he does a great job. Post-ups for your trailer. I think there's lots of ways that we can get down inside to collapse the defense. And I know the game has gotten away from the post-ups, and we certainly shoot as many threes and use dribble drive principles as much as anybody. But I do think there's a time and a place to get a 2-footer. I think there's a time and a place to collapse the defense. There's a time and a place to take advantage of a mismatch. This is one that I really, really fell in love with this year. You see this a bunch in the NBA where you're simply running some chin action to create an opportunity for the one to go one-on-one from about 15 feet away. We will really encourage the one to go Barkley, which is for us a code word to post up, to attack, and we space. Now again, if you've got a good shooter that's your big, you can space here. If you're 4-man, and again, I think I've got the numbers screwed up on the second slide, but you get the idea. If my 4-man or my 5-man is not a good shooter, you can go back to the dunk spot and get him out of the way. So again, I love this. I would encourage all of you to look at opportunities to get a player down in this spot and attack. And we call it dribble into a post-up. John Leonzo at Cedarville women's basketball does a great job. I think I heard him say that last year or the year before, something like that, and I really liked that terminology. We were kind of doing it without really knowing what to call it, and he calls it dribbling into a post-up, and I like it. In this case, you're just catching in the post-up action and then really attack and keep that dribble. This is a great action for a post-up on the backside. I call this action weak. Another one borrowed from a good buddy that runs again. I'm stealing, borrowing. I know that there's great stuff out there, and I think the biggest key for you as coaches is to figure out what works for you, what works for your team, and tweak it a little bit if you need to. This is a 1-2, screen away, exchange, duck in on the backside after the 3-man is cleared. Especially with a bigger post that can really go to work in here. We may not run that if we've got a kid that we're running out to the 3-point line a bunch. This may be one where we've got a pretty dominant post. There's some simple clear outs here that I love. These are what I would put under special backdoors. 2 clear out, we call this a 41, especially against pressure. This is where a drop zone is all the way out here beyond the 3-point line. Here's a fake handoff action. Goes back to some of my favorite actions earlier. 1-5, or in this case, 1-4, fake handoff and go. And again, I've got my numbers screwed up. My guess is that I had switched them around and whatever. But you guys get the idea. Elbow entries. Mike Neighbors, Arkansas, runs a great series of elbow entries and he ran them a lot with Kelsey Plum that were really fun to watch. And so I got kind of the idea of an elbow entry backdoor, elbow entry, fake handoff, and go. This is a great one, just kind of a spin special backdoor play. Again, I think those are great to have. I'd save them. And transition-wise, you can run the same thing, kind of an entry here where you're getting a little backdoor. But again, I think transition stuff, something that flows, especially off free throws, and I'm going to talk that in my special situations here in a little bit. And I know I'm going quick here, guys, but realize I'll get this PDF to you, and you can look through all this stuff. I've got some video. We don't have time to go through them, but if you want the PowerPoint from me, I can send it, and it has some video clips of some of this action going on. On your screen now, what you're seeing is our playbook, and you're probably looking at a lot of stuff and thinking, holy cow. Here's the reality. Some of these are simple actions. Some of these are just ideas for me to run out of a timeout late game. These are adjustment ideas in our defensive sequence. We've got about 20 out of bounds plays. We're probably running 5 of those that game. We've got a list of 5 on the board pregame of what we're going to run. And then all these other ones are ones that I'm going to have in my back pocket for late game. timeouts, those kind of things. I've got post-ups. I've got my sideline series. Again, there's about 20 of them there, probably running 4 or 5. And after timeout, probably more. Zone, man, ATOs. I like looking at how other coaches do it. So, guys, if you're sharing what you're doing, that's probably smarter than how I ever do it. I don't know. It's just what's worked for me. I think you have to have a good system of organization. I think the best coaches are organized coaches. And it has to work for you. Then if it doesn't work for the guy next door, who cares? It's got to work for you. And that kind of wraps up what I was talking about in Dribble Drive, but I think it flows right into our special situations. I think the thing that you've got to remember about special situations coaches, you can win that. You can control that. We all know that most of the time, the team with the best players wins. And so over the course of a season, over 30 games, the team that has the best players is going to win more than they're going to lose. Now, we get some good coaching combined with some good players, then you get some special things going on. Don't get me wrong, coaching is super important, but there's also your talent level and all those things and your gym space and just so many different things. But I do think special situations are multiple times during a game where you can win. You can absolutely win the moment. And I think Brad Stevens in the NBA does an unbelievable job. You see some guys in college, Izzo comes to mind as a guy that wins the special situations all the time. I think look at every single thing and think about where it is you can win. To me, they go into different areas, and these are the special situations. You've got, for me, it's the beginning of the game, jump ball. It's when they're shooting a free throw. It's your dead situations. The ball's just dead. It got tipped out. Somebody fouled. You've got your typical special situations that I think all of us think about, our slobs and our bobs. High school guys, the full court plays. I remember having a bunch of those, and now I don't really have any because we're advancing the ball. And I wish you guys could all have that rule. It's so fun. Then your after timeout stuff. I think you have to have things for all those. Doesn't mean you might only use them once or twice, but you'll just be pissed at yourself when you don't. I'll tell you a quick story. My first or second year coaching, I looked up I remember we were rallying to try to win a game, and with 2 minutes to go, I looked up and there was one foul on the scoreboard on us. And we had cut the lead to like 3 or 4, and we needed to foul, but we had to foul 6 times or 5 times just to get them in the one-on-one. And it was my fault we lost the game. Because had we had been at 5 or 6 and fouled and forced them to shoot a one-on-one, maybe we'd have got a miss. I don't know. You never know those things, but I think it's important that you know time and score, fouls, who's got the fouls, who should you foul, and all those things, and I'm going to go through them. Does everyone know your time and score? Do they know it in practice? Do you always have the scoreboard up, time and score? I think that's important. What are you going to do down 3? What are you going to do up 3? What are you going to do when you need a 3? Do you want to go quick 2 first? Those are things to think about. If you've got a shot clock state, 2 for 1s. When are you going to do it? What words are you going to use? We use fire and ice. If we've got a 2 for 1, we're yelling fire. If we don't want it, we're going to run the shot clock out, we're calling ice. I think it's important that you know on the opponents who you're going to foul, know their percentages, and who are they going to foul on your team. Just as important as the other way. So when you're ahead, who do you need to get out of the game? When do you start fouling? How many fouls? A lot of it obviously depends on whether you have shot clock or not. When are you going to go to your leg game? Have you talked about that before the game? I think football coaches have rehearsed all the things that they're going to do in the last 5 minutes of a game. I think we as basketball coaches can borrow some of those ideas. Do you take a timeout to win a game at the end, or do you let your guys flow? I think that's a personal preference. And depending on, for us to be able to advance the ball, we end up taking timeouts more often because it gives us more time at the end. If you're high school, you might just flow and let it go. Some more thoughts. When you're ahead, you're trying never to stop the clock. And I always tell our team when we're ahead, the only way they come back is we don't rebound and we turn it over. So we have to do those 2 things. When you're behind, that timeout with 5 to go and you're down 6, attack the rim, get to the free throw line, stop the clock. We call it a 2-minute offense, and it could go for 8 minutes. But it's the idea of the football, 2 minutes on the clock. This is our 2-minute offense. And you always wonder when you watch those football games, boy, they just went down the field in 35 seconds in their 2-minute drill. Why the hell did they do that the whole game? I mean, I don't know. Just a thought for me is we're trying to be in our 2-minute offense a lot of the time, but at the end, knowing that, hey, we want to get fouled. We want to get to the free throw line, stop that clock. What is your process of timeouts? How much do you give them? do they remember? And the 3x5 game on this one, coaches, is we're in practice. Each coach takes a timeout. We talk to our team about 3 things. And then you go back and you ask them immediately afterwards, maybe it's after the one play, what were the 3 things that we said? You'd be amazed how little they remember. So I would encourage you to maybe hit one thing offensively and one thing's defensively in those timeouts. Or for us, sometimes it's late game when you're trying to draw up a play, and that's your focus. How will you guard the home run play? You're going to do Patino and stay off and then end up with Kentucky Duke. I think we've all seen that play that goes to Christian Leitner. How are you going to guard the ball on that home run play? That's something to think about also. Are you going to go zone, whatever? Some last thoughts about special situations, then we'll get into the X's and O's. Mike Meek, University of Portland women's basketball, probably one of the very best coaches I've ever been around. We went head-to-head at the high school level for 10 years, and to give you an example, from 2000 to 2010, Mike's school won 5 state titles. The school I was at won 5 state titles. So he's terrific and does a great job. Just really brilliant. And he gave me the idea of a red zone offense, a playbook for the end of the game, save something. Don't run your best play 90 seconds into the game. When I'm out recruiting, I see coaches, and I don't mean that this is necessarily wrong, but they'll run a special backdoor 3 minutes into the game, and they get the lay-in, but they've used that play up. And if they're coaching against anybody that knows what they're doing, you got to be careful. You kind of want to save something when you need a big bucket. And I try to break that down into all the special situations that you can face. And even at the high school level, we used to do special situation tournaments. College, we don't do it as much. We do a lot of time and score stuff, but where you get the teams and they play situations, blue is down 6, 2 minutes to go, white is up 8, those kind of things. And you play a little tournament, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. And I have a template if you wanted to see that. Going back to my screen, I showed you this one earlier. This sheet here covers all my special situations. The first one, jump ball. I try to win the jump ball every single time. Now, it's great when you got a 6'5" kid on the women's side, or on the men's side, a 7-footer that's going to win the tip every time. Then it becomes simple. But even if I'm not going to win the tip, I am going to try as a coach to win that situation. And there's 4 things that I do this year, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. We're going to try to tip to get a lay-in. We're going to tip to get a 3. We're going to, if we're not going to win the tip, we're going to tip to get into press, or we're going to get a tip to steal it. And we're going to try to win that situation that's dead and it's special. The first one, we're going to win the tip. We tip it on the toss. Remember, teach your players, if they're off the circle, they can move on the toss. And I think we coaches all know that, but I don't know if your players know that. We'll line them up around there and make sure they understand that rule. So in this first one, we're going to tip it to 5, 2, and 3 on the toss. It leaves the fingertips of the referee. They're sprinting. We're going to get a lay-in. On the second one, we're going to press the tip. We're in our 1-2-2 alignment. The 5 is just going to tip it backwards, and we're going to jump right into our 1-2-2 press and surprise them. I got that from the modern day on the women's side, Kevin, and he is really good. He did it with his Troy team to us way back when. They just jumped all over you. So I like that, taking control of tempo. We'll try to steal the tip. We'll take our 3-man and put them off the ball, 2-man, 1-man, whoever it is. And we try to guess the most logical tip place, and we're going to go steal it. We're just going to run in front of it and go steal it. Again, as long as the 3 is off the circle, they can move. The 3-point shot on the tip, this is, again, we're going to win it. This kind of is a fun one. It freaks everybody out, but it looks kind of cool. We put our shooters in the corners, and it gets your crowd pumped up pretty early too, because you've got your 2 and 3 in the corners, and we got our 1-man right here. We're going to win the tip it to the 1. The 1's going to go, and we're going to shoot a 3 on the first one. And again, you got to have confidence that you're going to win the tip on that one. But again, that's a situation that I try to win. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, just that's a chance for us to win and get the ball and try to score. Free throw transition. When the other team is shooting, we like to have something ready. I've got a couple examples for you. This is my favorite transition set. Ran this for years at the high school level. It's a very simple one. It's a 1-2 kick ahead. We're going to try to make sure that 4 and 1 do not cross so they can switch. We get a fake down screen here on the back. It's all a decoy. and the one will run through, and then we're going to get and I'm telling you guys, this is a 2-footer. It's not a 2.5-footer, not a 3-footer, a 2-footer. If they switch it, the one will turn around, catch it, and then throw a quick lob or rack it right there. This one's really good. It's tough to guard. It's screen the screener, but it's in a unique manner. It's almost pinned down cross screen rather than your traditional screen down screen where everybody comes to the top. This is a sneak under. I'm telling you what, it is hard to guard. And again, not dribble drive related, but just something that really, really works. And we would try to get it to flow, obviously, for ours into our dribble drive. Again, this is a dead situation. This is a Jeff Waltz Louisville play. Gets us a 3. It's an overload, triple stack. One tries to engage X2. The 4-man, 5-man, whoever you want to put in the spots gets the nail and engages X1. As the ball's in the air, we sprint, we seal in, and we try to just get a 3 on the wing or make the extra pass to the corner. This one's been one that it's been pretty good to us over the years. It's a very hard overload to guard, and for us, it would flow right into our zone offense. But then again, to me, it's a free throw situation by the other team. It's a chance for you to talk to your players. At the college level, it's 2 shots no matter what. So we don't have to worry about the one-on-one. So we're talking to them about running something on a free throw to try to win that next time down. 3-quarter court dead is the same thing. To me, ball gets tipped out. Are we just going to flow into offense? Is there somebody that says, hey, coach, this is where we talked about running yellow or purple or fist or whatever it might be. I think that's another one. It's a dead situation. You know the defense is going to be set. Maybe take advantage of it with the special situations, some sort of favorite set, play, backdoor, whatever. Same thing on your half-court deads. That may be too high to run your regular slob plays. Do you want to just flow, like right into your stuff? Do you want it right side, left side? For me, we started in this situation running our horn stuff automatically. We would just call horns. And then I knew based on what side of the floor it was in, which horn set I wanted to get based on my isolations. We had a lefty, and so trying to get the lefty driver going downhill. And we had a tremendous right-handed driver that was really hard to stay in front. So, trying to do those things, always knowing when you should use something. And again, that to me is when it's just past half court, maybe a little, but it's too high to run your normal slobs. Then you've got your slob plays. Man zone, your ATOs. And again, KYP, know your personnel. What's your goal? Do you want to get a lay-in coming out of those? Do you want to get a post-up? Do you want to just get your best player the ball? I do think that there's a lot of value in getting the ball to your best player, especially after a couple of ball reversals. Let the other kids touch it. To me, the ball brings energy. I get to touch it, even though I'm not going to shoot it but about 6 or 7 times a game maybe, and I know Johnny over there is going to shoot it 17, but I got to touch it. I got to swing it. I got to go set a ball screen for Johnny, and I got him his 23 points, and I know that helps us win. I think those are big things to think about when you're thinking about offense. For us, my favorite sideline actions, this is an old Tom Izzo play. I think I picked it up at the University of Washington with Rosenzo Romar, and this is a great one for a man or zone when you don't know what they're coming out in. It's a triple stack in front. We get a little back pick by the 3, and then we sell that play. The one comes over selling it to the 3, but it's really misdirection where the 2 sets it and gets it. And then we obviously, closest man slips, farthest man spaces. That's our rule on double screens. But again, that's kind of my favorite sideline, especially when we don't know man or zone, or a team that kind of switches up out of timeouts. A lot of teams at the college level do that, where you come into timeout thinking man, they come out zone. So we've got to kind of be ready for both. I encourage you to have plays that work against both, or at least be ready. Here's another favorite play that we call our corner set for when it's deep in the corner. I think you have to have deep corner plays. The ball is down here low. We get a sprint over the top by the 2. The 4 turns and finds this little hole in the zone or a hole in the man. Again, it's most of the time a man play. We may get a step out against the zone, and then it's a lob for a lay-in. This one was really good to us at the high school level. The scouting is a little bit better at the college level, especially with synergy where you're on there, and teams will stay home. But we got this one a ton in high school. I really liked it. And you can wrinkle it. You can add stuff to it. I think that's a great idea, coaches. Instead of adding more plays, add a wrinkle to your existing plays. Add a backdoor to your normal sideline play that you always run. And And I think that's good stuff to expand your playbook. Baseline out of bounds. Now, again, there's 8 million baseline out of bounds plays. And you guys like boxes, you like 1-4 lows. There's a million. I'm just going to try to emphasize some ideas to attack thinking about what it is you're trying to get. Is your goal just to get a land? Is it to get a 3? Is it your best player? Is it a post up? And I think it's important that you scout. Obviously, if they're a zone underneath team, you see a lot of teams do that. But the second level of that is if they do play a man out of bounds, how are they guarding the out of bounds guy? Are you guarding it straight? Or are they taking away the backside? Because there's different reads that you can make. And I think you can get yourself – I put 50 down, so you guys are going to have to hold me accountable to this after next season. But I think there's some points that are to be gotten. And this is a section, guys, I want you to look at and make sure you understand what I'm talking about. Almost every out of bounds play that I run always has a player in front and a player in back, always, whether we're box set or 1-4 low. And we're making reads. All the eyes of my players, and I only have 3 players on these diagrams, but just visualize a box set or visualize a 1-4 low, whatever, it doesn't matter. 4 and 5 here have their eyes on the one man, and we're looking at a couple things. If X1 in this first diagram, and this is on one of my 60-second videos, so I think it's something you guys could follow up on and watching that. If X1 is playing back here, I'm going to hit it to the floor and come right behind and just shoot it. It's not a play. It's just tap the head. We're going to do that. If X1 in frame 2 here is in front of the 1, we're now going to look for what we call a Z pass. You can make up other names. You can make this A and you can make this B and make that C. I think that's your language that you're creating as a coach. And I love that. I think that's fun, but try to make it make sense. But this case, this X5 is right here and we just throw it. Now you have to teach one to be confident. It's coaches. I know you might be able to see me in the corner here, but it's just boom right from the referee, throw it. It's not hold it, hold it, hold it. It's boom, boom. Boom, just get it, throw it. And then the last frame here, you've got in front where X4 has just gone to sleep. Maybe they're face guarding. And we're just going to throw it right over their head. It's going to go probably right there. And we're going to get a land. I would encourage you this summer, guys, to get that, some versions of that put in. I put 40 points up there. I think it will get you 40 points. I think it will get you 2 baskets a game. And I think it's worth looking at and putting into what you already do. Your boxes, your 1-4 lows, all that stuff. Some of my favorites, I just put a couple because I've got a bajillion of them, and it changes year to year. I love the shuffle cut on OBs. We used to call this Colorado because the team from Colorado kicked our butt with it. It's just a shuffle cut action where we enter and then reverse it, and one comes up with shuffle cuts. And I don't think I have the ending, but the ending for us would be 5 screen for 1. They're tough action to guard. You can keep the 2 lifted if you liked it a little bit better, that kind of stuff. But just one of my favorite ones, but I do think the previous slide is something you could think about. And again, there's 8 million things out there blob-wise, but I would encourage you to look at those little actions that I just had on there that'll get you some buckets without changing anything in your playbook. Because I think we can all get 50 million out of bounds plays and trying to figure out some stuff that works. Another one that I always liked in a 1-4 low situation was a lob to the elbow, a fake handoff by 2 and 5, and then racket. So I've taken a concept of a false motion there, a fake handoff. We used to call this Delaware. We got beat by a team in Delaware about 15 years ago. They just kicked our butts with this one. I think we all ran to the bleachers over this way, and the kid just went the other way. But again, those are small pieces, and I know that those are, to me, things that you can find online. I'll send you a bunch. If you guys are really interested in baseline out of bounds, I can send you the whole package. But I think that first part about just those little read plays will help you more than anything. Full court plays, I think high school, you need a couple. I like to emphasize to our players that 1 dribble equals 1 second. So with 5 seconds on the clock, we got 5 dribbles, or 4 dribbles and a pass, or maybe 3 dribbles and a pass. But you can get farther than you think. Sometimes I think players see 4 seconds and they crap their pants. I think you can emphasize that 1 dribble, 1 second rule, and it'll help you. In high school, my favorite full court play was get it to the point guard and let them kick it back to the trailer, just going as hard as they can. College, again, we get to advance the ball, so the sidelines became a lot bigger. This was my favorite high school late game play. I was really lucky to have some really good point guards over the years in high school, and we just wanted to get our point guard as open as possible. Obviously, if there were some double teams or press, we would adjust. But if they were just going to man us, we wanted to just go to a straight, hard Vance Wahlberg kickback, and we would attack as hard as we could, and we were going to get that trailer 5, trying to shoot a 3 or get downhill depending on the time we had. And we got it. We would do this almost every day in practice. And you'd be amazed how much X5 stays home on that one, and you can get a look. But just a simple pitch back. Some more full court action. One of my favorites was just to take a timeout to the side. On the first one you see here, it was kind of a diagonal screen for 3, and then as one stepped, we would throw it ahead, and then the 2 would come up, and we would take a timeout, and then we would run a quick sideline play. If we didn't have the timeouts, or didn't feel like this was our best option, we would run the same action. 5 would try to get open at half court, and now the 1 and 3 would kind of fill. This is a little bit like the Valpo, Bryce Drew shot play many, many years ago. And there's tons of them out there to take a peek at, but I do think if you're a high school guy, you need to have some full court plays in the college. And hopefully we don't run out of timeouts, but if we do, we have a couple things in our back pocket that we can run. Because again, to me, it's a thing you could try to win. Much harder in the full court. We all know that, but you can try to win those. Seen this a lot lately against the pressure where maybe you're ahead and you put all 4 players on the baseline going this way, and you just figure out who can come up and go back and get the ball just to get it in. Because you don't rarely see teams that are going to deny that low to the baseline. Syracuse women have done this, and it makes it really hard with their athletes to guard them. And so it's a way to break a press or deal with you're ahead late and they're just trying to deny you to make it to where you can break up and break back and get an easy catch. I do think there's a series of plays that you need to have where you just want to get it in, and that falls into those special situations. After timeout, I think that's big for every level. Be prepared. Have you sat down with your coaches? And we used to love doing this with groups of like 5 or 6 of us, where we would get together and it would be like, okay, Coach Smith, you're up, you're down 2 with 11 seconds. It's your ball in the backcourt. What are you going to run? You're going to draw something up and then show it to the group. And then, Coach Jones, you've got the ball on the side. You're down 1. The team is switching. What are you going to do? I think those are things, and they're fun, and it can get you ready. Because I do think that one of the things that helped me become better in the coaching craft was in high school. The summers we coached 50 or 60 games, all levels, and beyond the I think 700 games I coached officially in high school. I had about another 1,000 of them in the summer, and you just see stuff. And I think those are great ways to share with other guys and get you ready for those kind of things. I think this might be my last slide, and I know I've gone for almost an hour 20 now, guys, and I appreciate your patience. These are guys that I really respect, and when I say guys, I men and women also, that are just the best of the best, and you could follow them on Twitter, or you could just give them a call or reach out to them at their respective schools that are just super, super coaches. Mike Meek at University of Portland, phenomenal. Justin Duke is a local high school guy, young guy, doing a terrific job. Great dribble drive guy. Oh, gosh. Sue Phillips, not a dribble drive, but probably one of the very best high school women's coaches in the country. She's won multiple gold medals with our under-17s team and just about salt of the earth. Just an Algebra 1 teacher down there in Archbishop Mitty, and she's got a few national championships too down there. She's awesome. If you want to listen or watch a team that works the 0.5 rule better than anybody, Doc Shepler, watch his Pinewood teams. All their games are on TV on YouTube, all of them. They move the ball and share the ball as good as any team you're going to see in the country, period. Doug Novak's on the men's side. He's probably influenced my individual school coaching, just watching his videos, how he teaches it as much as anybody in the last couple of years. I think it's made me a better coach at teaching our players how to finish, giving them more tools to the toolbox. I think Mike Neighbors gives you a unique perspective on being a great coach and not necessarily having to fit into the normal box of how you're supposed to be versus how you can be. Makes you think. If you want to really make him laugh, ask about JFK or some of those conspiracy theories. And then Kelly Sopak on the club side and high school side, probably one of the very best. So I do think this is my last slide. And I know I went straight through an hour plus there, guys. And I appreciate your patience. I think I'm fading out here, and I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I think I'm back to here. Correct, guys?
Yes, sir. You are on the screen.
Okay. What I'll do then is, and I don't know if I want to share that first slide again, just to make sure that everybody got the one. I can try to get to that one. Are there any coaches that have questions, or did I bore them completely out of their minds and they're ready to go take a nap or something?
No, I don't have any questions, actually. You didn't bore me, though.
Yeah. Well, let me get up to the one that just has this. Can you guys see that one that has my contact info?
Yes, it's up there.
That's the one you're going to want to go to reach out, and I encourage you to do that. I love talking hoops. I absolutely love it. It's a passion for me. And hopefully in the dribble drive stuff, you got something out of that, how to kind of create some gaps and opportunities to get you guys some advantages. And then in special situations, I love talking about that. I think that is an overlooked part for a lot of guys. And I don't think it's rocket science. I think it's just organizing yourself in a manner that when this is happening, you're ready for it. And I know it cost me games early in my career, and so I've tried to be prepared. That doesn't mean you're perfect. That doesn't mean you're going to make the right call. But I do think that as long as you're prepared and giving it your best shot, that's all you really want to do as a coach.
Yeah, this was awesome, Kurt. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to bring more dribble drive exposure to our area. I just think it'll advance the game in general. So,
It's a lot of fun. I think kids love it. Kids love it. It's fun. And you don't have to full go. You could go hybrid versions of it that just use concepts and work it in there, because I think everybody loves getting a kid downhill. I think that any offense that gives a kid an opportunity to drive into a gap is good offense.
Yeah, I think it's great. I don't even think we can do breakdown drills all day of it. You don't even have to call it the dribble drive offense. They won't even know. They're just learning how to play basketball. So, again, I really appreciate you coming on here, and I'll stay in touch along the way, and we'll talk soon. All right. Thank you.
Sounds great. And you guys can reach out. I appreciate it, guys. Have a great rest of your week and weekend too.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff.
All right. Take care, guys.